Jet Reno wants hot and sour soup. Booker has a cat door. Tilly turns off the toilets. And President Tarina tells Saru to call her Tarina. Madam President, if you're nasty. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Seventh Rule with Sirach Lofton.
Hello, hello.
My name is Ryan T. Huss. Today we're doing a review of Discovery Season 4, Finale, Episode 13, entitled Coming Home, with very special guest, Dr. MOHAMED NOOR.
Hello. Thanks for having me back on the show. Always a pleasure to be on the Seventh Rule.
Man, we have been waiting forever. MOHAMED, you've been on an embargo in which you cannot talk about Discovery at all because you are a science advisor for them occasionally.
And free at last.
As of right now, you can talk about Discovery. So what did you think of episode 1?
I love the whole season, honestly. I thought this was great. But it's so exciting now to see it come to fruition after watching the whole process play out from the beginning. Our first calls about the season that I was on, and I assume there were ones, actually I know for a fact there were ones before I was a part of it. Our first calls were in May 2020. So
wow,
this was a long process, and I remember the first call I was on. Yeah, and I remember the call I was on. That first call talked about some big thing going through the galaxy and destroying planets. So I mean, it was there was already some framing already at that point in time. So yeah, it's really exciting seeing this come to completion now, almost like you said, Sirach, 2 years later.
2 years later. And what about the biology of this 10C species? Like that's a interesting question for me to kind of dive into.
Yes.
So from the very beginning, they wanted the 10C to be truly, truly alien. And they had already come up with the idea, I don't remember if it was in May or sometime maybe in July or something like that, about them living on a gas giant planet. But they wanted something like really different.
You mean not like forehead alien of the week?
Not forehead aliens.
They wanted to really go for it.
Nothing like that. And they wanted the communication. Yeah, they wanted the communication to be really challenging. They wanted the sense of connectedness, though, to come out at the very end. And that was definitely the theme from the very beginning, that they wanted the sense of connectedness and working together to solve this problem. So that was really fascinating. But yeah, they plugged me in early on about the aliens, but we actually didn't do much with the aliens for a long time because they were so focused on, they were talking with Dr. Aaron McDonald about like, what is this dark matter anomaly? They were calling the calls the space Roomba. It kind of is a space Roomba.
Yeah, sucking up planets and destroying entire galaxies. But yes, I guess so, in a Roomba type of way.
Yeah.
So this 10C, they mentioned it. They kind of brought the Borg in. They're like, is it like a Borg?
Yeah.
Like this hive mind? And it is not, right? Or it is, but it isn't.
Yeah. Right. So that part, I didn't actually talk with them about the connectedness among the 10C, which I remember that came up in the episode that we just saw today. Yeah, I didn't know anything about that ahead of time. It was interesting just saying like, tabula rasa, like just brainstorm what could this thing look like. So like I remember one of the first
hang on a second, you just used for like the millionth time a term that my regular brain does not understand. Tabula rasa.
Yeah,
I mean, I guess what does it mean?
It's like a blank screen, basically, or a blank page. Yeah, it's a Latin expression.
Same. That's what went in my head when you said that. But anyway, please continue. Sorry,
I just tossed that out there real quick. But it was fascinating saying like just come up with something completely alien. Now, I should say that in the end, what they actually came up with was much more them than me in terms of the actual aliens themselves. I had tossed out. I was mostly focused on how they would communicate, like what would be the biological and physical means of communications for these species. So actually in one of the earliest calls, like in July 2020, I tossed out this idea, what, we should do chemical communication. If you want something really different, there's a lot of species on Earth that have chemical communication, like ants, wolves, a lot of things communicate by pheromones. And we often think of pheromones in the context of like sex pheromones, but pheromones just is something that is associated with communication. It doesn't have to be like directly associated with sex. So basically
ants are really, really known and really good at doing this chemical communication, but I'd never heard about wolves doing that too.
Yeah, different things. I mean, it's you see like when a dog marks its territory. I mean, that's kind of that sort of thing too, right? Well, it's by smell.
Humans do that sometimes too.
Yeah, it was great coming up with that. And then as we went through the process, it was like, well, I had some. I don't know if you guys want me to go into it. I can tell you some of the crazy ideas that didn't didn't make it to there.
That's so fun. Yeah.
One of the original things I tossed out was something more kind of snail-like, and it was doing chemical communication, but more by touch, where it would actually have to touch this thing, like it would have a tentacle that would come out. But then there was the question of like, how would they communicate with things elsewhere? Like, well, maybe they've developed technology and they have these like gloves that they put on their tentacle, and then it changes the chemicals to radio waves, and then it's received at the other end, and it exudes like a chemical
translator.
onto that.
Yeah, that's super
exactly.
fun.
Yeah, so that was one of the crazy things that didn't make it in. That's pretty complicated. But
snail juice.
Snail juice.
The Ferengi would love it.
Good call.
I love that idea though, like a glove that translates their normal speech into something that can actually go the distance. Like we use, radio waves, or we use telephones or something. Maybe they've got something. Oh, that's really interesting.
There's no intrinsic reason why it couldn't be translating chemicals instead of like audio messages. Why not, right? But yeah, then a year or so in, actually, I guess, it was about a year in, I think, is when the Medi folks got involved. I don't know if you noticed, there were some other technical consultants listed in the credits besides Dr. Aaron McDonald and I, who've been on for the whole season. There were two other people, Douglas Vakoch and Dr. Sherry Wells Jensen. I can't remember if it's Wells Jensen or Jensen Wells. It's embarrassing. But those two names, Wells and Jensen, are in there. But they're associated with MEDI, which is that it's a nonprofit for messaging extraterrestrial intelligence. And it got actually a mention in the previous episode. So Douglas Vakoch is the president and founder of MEDI. And Sherry is somebody who's a linguistic expert and interested in it specifically in the context of talking with, essentially aliens.
It is Dr. Sherry Wells Jensen. You were right.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I was embarrassed. I couldn't remember which order that was. But yeah, they got involved and they then were looking at the linguistic aspect to it. So like I just tossed out like essentially some chemicals. So I tossed out the idea of hydrocarbons, which is what they did end up using, could essentially be like Mandarin characters, like word characters or something like that. Mm-hmm. They then said, okay, let's turn it into a syntax and have this math associated with it and things like that. That was like, okay, this is linguistics. This isn't biology anymore now. So they ran with that after I got the basis for that. It was fun with the hydrocarbons are really cool for doing this because the carbon atom can bind to 4 other atoms, right? So you can actually make very complex structures with it, more so than with a lot of other atoms. And this is one of the reasons that probably most of life is carbon-based. Hydrocarbons is just literally something that involves hydrogen and carbon atoms in some combination. So I kept on saying, you need to make this complex hydrocarbons. And in the script, I kept on saying, like, please add the word complex and don't draw like some super simple, like 1 carbon with 4 hydrogens. Because I was like, that's gonna be methane. It can't be like, oh, that makes we
got enough methane on our planet,
right? It's gonna say like nothing's gonna make you say like, oh, that makes me think of love when it actually smells like a fart, right?
Yeah. Don't knock it, but
yeah. But yeah, they came up much more. I mean, I talked with them, but they came up with the concept of like how those aliens would look and things like that. And together we talked a lot about the lights piece and stuff like that, and how that would be associated with the hydrocarbon supramolecules, which is basically just a conglomeration with some forces holding together a whole bunch of different hydrocarbons.
Speaking of how they look, Sirach, I don't know if you noticed this, but when I saw them, and they're kind of more in the background, it kind of looked like virus dumbbells, right? I mean, didn't they kind of look like viruses that were connected in the middle or something? I don't know. What did you, or not?
I thought of more like sea life, like jellyfish or something.
You nailed it, Sirach. That was part of the motivation. It was something kind of jellyfish-like. Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like a jellyfish, and I like the idea of using the light as the kind of the Rosetta Stone, or the kind of key to unlock the hydrocarbon messaging. So that was also good as well.
I'm glad you liked it.
Jellyfish. Yeah. Back to our roots of Encounter at Farpoint. And Sirach, I'm glad you brought up the Rosetta Stone, because that was something we wanted to talk about last week, and we ran out of time. So I'm glad you brought that back up. But that was, I think the episode was called Rosetta, right?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, but the process then continued all the way to the last minute. Like I literally got an email from I won't say, from somebody in the VFX part in December about like something that was going to pop up on Culver's screen saying, "Does this look okay?" Like, wow, this is like coming out in just a couple of weeks. Okay.
You should have just said no, just to screw with them, and like, oh shoot, I can't start this over again.
No. I was kind of interested in the Vulcan kind of telepathic connection that it made with this species, and what that would realistically kind of feel like or be like. I was trying to imagine that occurring, because I was only, exposing yourself essentially to like high voltage, or in the equivalent of a high voltage in a mental capacity, would be something that I would be very hesitant to do if I were them. But it certainly was something that I was trying to imagine. What would that be like to communicate telepathically with this entity?
A brilliant question, and that actually connects with one issue with what was put together, and it's something that was acknowledged openly, not in this episode, but I think either in 11 or 12. I don't remember which one, but this idea that we essentially not only feel the same emotions, but can have the same emotions evoked by the same chemicals. So I mean, we're clearly not closely related to these things.
Yeah.
And typically pheromones are, they're not necessarily species specific, but they're usually pretty close. So at one point in time, one idea I tossed out, which obviously didn't make it in there, is that why don't you expose the chemicals to grudge and see if it evokes
That's
the same
so fun. Yeah.
grudge. Which
that
people liked
actually,
at the time, but I think it just would have been weird. Like, why would they be taking it to their cat? But I think it came up
that can help you by process of elimination or whatever. That's how language and figuring out alphabets and things like that work, is by exposing them or trying them out with different things and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Yeah. So that would have been
effectively that did happen with the Kelpian versus human, and that's where it came up as Saru. I can't remember if it was Saru or Michael, one of them made the comment about, but our physiologies are so different, yet we're evoking the same response. Like, so it effectively did that with Saru rather than using grudge.
Right, you're right. Yeah, good point.
Yeah, so your point's excellent, though, in the sense of like it was definitely risky there of Tarina to link with that, because who knows what's going to happen at that point.
Yeah, and then they also played on that with Book's character as well, because his towards the end his forehead started lighting up in the same pattern, and it was as if they were communicating with or understanding each other
with the world root.
Yeah, and it makes you say, well, Book, how come you didn't try that before? Like, you have this ability. Like, I would have been like, well, let me see if this works. It's almost like
let's try everything.
It's like you have one superpower, so you might want to try that.
Unfortunately, he was on the wrong team.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
great point.
Very emotional episode.
Oh my God! Did you cry? I totally cried when I thought Book was dead.
I was sad. I didn't fully outcry, but I was sad, and I felt the pain in
Michael
Burnham's facial expressions, and
that's what did it. Yeah,
I felt. I thought Sonequa played that like excellently. I felt the loss as it occurred, because she did set us up in the script and also in her performance with the fact that like they saved him, right? Beam him aboard the ship right here in the middle, put him right here. Yeah. And he felt like he was about to come. So it was like, oh, here he comes, and he's going to appear, your mind says he's going to appear at the same time this whole destruction happens in the background, and the contrast of him being saved and the, destruction would be the thing that you would kind of have to absorb. But when he was lost in that translation, I felt Sonequa's performance. I thought it was exceptional. Probably the best performance she's given thus far, as far as just like really killing it emotionally.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that's therein lies what's so important about great acting. Obviously acting is always important, and we want it to be good and we want it to work. But for example, for someone like me, when Book didn't show up, my analytical mind pops in immediately, so I don't get emotional. I start thinking, wait, are they going to kill him? Conceivably, would his contract be over the end of the season? It would, and I start thinking it's a really bold move. It's really interesting and smart, and actually, it might be a good thing. It might send Michael into a different kind of arc where she has to heal. And I'm doing all this stuff, and then what actually gives you the emotional response for me personally, and maybe others like me, was when then Sonequa was acting and how she reacted to it. That's when I go, all right, let me put aside the analytics for a second and, see what she's given us. And she killed it. She obviously, like a lesser actor may not have conveyed that to a curmudgeon like myself, but it certainly worked. And I paused from my analytics for a second there. So A+ on her. I agree with you, Sirach. That was like, she's shown big emotions many times in this series, but I feel like this was the biggest and the most valid and the most, I don't want to say the most accurate, but the one where I was like, wow, that she really nailed it. It felt very genuine, and I was very impressed with it.
Other one which got me was, which was just a funny one, was when Book came back, Owoshikan's eyes. Her eyes were like as big as her head. Wow, that's a reaction to that, which, I mean, fair. It was crazy.
Yeah, I want to go back to that performance quickly and highlight the two moments that I thought were great. One, when the moment she loses Book, she doesn't say any words, but she utters this and that's it.
She's dumbfounded.
She's dumbfounded. She's soaking it all in. And then they say, Captain, another orb is coming. Right after, like not too long after she gets to absorb that moment, they're like, another orb is coming. We gotta, and she says another one-worder, like it's getting worse. Like, not only is that, but it's about to get even worse. Like, okay.
Yeah,
this is
processing. Processing.
Yeah, like one of those days. It's gonna be one of those.
Yeah.
Days, right?
Okay. What else is gonna fall in my head right now? Okay.
Yeah, and it was very brief, but it communicated an entire amount of emotion to me. Just those small kind of utterances matched with her facial expressions. Fantastic. But yeah, I also want to say something about the USS Mitchell. I'm sure it's a nod to our buddy Kenneth Mitchell, and I wanted to make sure that it has to be, right?
Or Gary Mitchell, but I would say Gary Mitchell's a pretty important character in the original series, but I would lean towards Kenneth Mitchell because they've shown quite the loyalty to him, and well-deserved. And I think not only is it probably in reference to him, I think we all would rather it be in reference to him than Gary Mitchell.
Wasn't there also the Elgin too?
Oh, I didn't catch that. Or you mean in previous episodes, or in this?
I thought it was in this
episode.
Oh, I missed that. Yeah. That's beautiful.
And what's that? What's that reference to, Mohammed?
Anton Yelchin played Chekhov in the J.J. Abrams reboot Star Trek movies, and he passed away through an accident recently.
At only 27. Freak accident. Okay. Horrible.
Yeah.
Everybody go visit his grave. Don't trample the grass, but go visit if you ever want to say hello. There's a nice place in the Hollywood Forever Cemetery.
Yeah. There were some very good moments in this episode. Sorry to bring us all down, but
I know
I want to bring
I was just like, well, life is
I thought there were some great performances in this one, and I want to just make sure we go around and give them their kudos. General Ndoye had a moment where she stepped up to the scene and she just like owned her responsibility, which I thought was fantastic, because she didn't hide away or try to, shy away or run from her own part in what's happening. And she stepped up to the plate in a big way and kind of took ownership. And I think that's a lesson for all of us who kind of may have screwed up in life or something. It's a lot easier to just suck it up and own up to it than try to continue the lie and keep digging yourself a hole. So I wanted to say I was kind of
Sirach?
No,
I'm just kidding. I can't tell if you're looking at
I was proud of her because remember also in that moment, other people were being held captive because they were under suspicion, right? So she not only took the responsibility, but she alleviates the burden that they have to go through for being wrongly accused of whatever it is of their involvement. So I like the fact that she took ownership of that. And I think we can all learn a small lesson in that. The other thing I thought was very poignant was when Detmer, Emily Coote's character steps up and volunteers to like basically go on a suicide run, you know, and she's like, I'll go. And doesn't even hesitate to basically put her life on the line and say, I'll sacrifice myself.
Well,
And those
I
are
love that she did
yeah,
pause. I love it because it made it real. It wasn't just a like I'll do it.
yeah,
She was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah, she was like,
So
"Oh God, they're probably
that was
looking at
very
me."
real. I loved it. I was gonna bring that one
yeah,
up too. Great job, Sirach.
That was
yeah.
reminiscent for me a tiny bit of Cito Gaston in Next Generation's episode Lower Decks, where she, the Bajoran lady, volunteers herself. She was kind of asked, it was kind of implied, just like with Detmer, where they're like, it needs to be a really good pilot, you know, but it's like, it still takes that strength and that courage to say, okay, I get it.
Yeah,
It's me. I got to do it. And I volunteer.
yeah, yeah. My number's being called, and it's on me to get this mission done. And that's reflective of a lot of people having to make those kind of choices in war, in times of combat. You know, when they're faced with life or death decisions that we're seeing right now play out in front of us, you know, in real time. There are people that have to make those kinds of decisions, whether they're, you know, have to say goodbye to their family and basically go on a suicide type mission. So, you know, it's a big thing. It shows a lot of courage. And I thought that was a good moment that they were able to write into this episode. Kind of meant something to me to see it.
Tilly was similar in that regard too, where she was like, I'm going to stay behind because it's my cadets. I need to work to protect them. So
someone has to turn off the toilets.
Yeah,
no, but that was great too. Yeah, it was great to see her again.
Yeah. I thought that was great too. Yeah, we didn't even get to Tilly, but she pops back up and, you know, showing that leadership role and kind of imparting that wisdom to the next generation of cadets. Like, okay, this is what it's about. And yeah, you're not finished training, and yeah, you don't have all the tools that you need. You know, we haven't taught you everything. You're not graduated yet, but we need you now, and this is the time. And it's just like, you know, just like people out there who have been drafted and, you know, coming out of high school and, you know, 18 years old, young people that have been drafted into wars. And yeah, they may not have been in ROTC and been having that training, but it's like, we need you now. We need you.
This is real world training. This is real world graduation. Yeah.
I love that we got to see those same cadets again too from the previous episode. It was nice to see them like, oh, they're still together. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I was thinking though was somebody needs to check Admiral Vance's his pockets, because he's got all type of flasks with, you know, kinds of he's walking around like Wild Wild West with his flasks in his pocket.
Wow, what? You can Vance if you want to.
Yeah, it was. Awesome. I thought that was interesting. I said, where did you get all of this nice whiskey holders and stuff? It was pretty amazing. But it was a special moment for them to share that, and him kind of taking the position of like, I'm going down with the ship. You know, like the captain going down with the ship. I thought that was another, like, everybody did essentially, for the most part, the right thing in the moments that counted, right? It was
right.
Well
even
said.
Tarka had his like breakdown crying moment where he was like, you're right, I'm wrong. You know,
I would have been for him.
Yeah, very little sympathy for him too. But he did have a moment of redemption. He had that moment where he realized that he was wrong. And he was also willing to do some type of sacrificial move in order to, for the greater good. So, you know, I hated him too. I wasn't trustful of him in the beginning, and he almost cost us Book's life and
all
Reno's
of Earth's
life,
but whatever,
and all of Earth,
and Navarre,
yeah,
Titan,
yeah. So yeah,
okay. However, I have a very powerful bone to pick with regards to that.
Okay.
You have to tie?
No, because it is not a silly nitpick. It is something that I feel pretty strongly about. And it is this. So, at the end, no spoilers, everybody, but you've seen the episode. At the end, when the good guys are talking with the DMA people, the 10C, and you know the 10C says, "Hey, why are you sad?" or whatever it is, and Michael explains to them, "Hey, well, we lost 2 of our people, and one of the people had, lost his loved one or whatever it was, and the other one lost his planet. And that one happened to be my one person, the person that I cared about. And the 10C said, okay, cool. Well, let me bring back that one. And I was like, wow, you guys, that's terrible. I'm like, you literally just brought back one life because it was her boyfriend and not the other one. And not one person was like, we said there were 2 lives that were lost. And
Tucker didn't beam anywhere, though, because they said they intercepted the beam.
Right.
Right. So it's not like they didn't just recreate them out of like thin air. They intercepted the beam. Yeah. And that's what I was hoping, that there was some kind of explanation, because I was like, oh, thank goodness. Because I was like, not one person was like,
I was thinking the same thing as you. I was thinking, well, hello, can you give me back everybody you killed in the beginning?
And that was the other thing.
Like,
Quajon. Then I was going to go to, can you bring back Quajon? Right. But they explained it. Okay, good. Because otherwise,
they intercepted the beam, and they said it was something that we figured it must be really valuable because it was coming from that thing. So we put it in stasis, which is a little bit like, when were you going to mention this? Like, okay.
Right.
Okay, good.
They explained it, and I thought the same thing that you thought, by the way, when it occurred, until the explanation came. So, but I do think there was a window of time there between when they delivered Book out of thin air, like the Immaculate Conception thing, right?
Right.
And I'm thinking, if I just witnessed them do that, I'd be asking for.
Can you bring my grandma back too? I miss her.
Like right away. That would be my first. Hey guys, real quick. Hey, Saru, can you tell him? Hey, bring back my grandma, whoever it is. I'd have a whole list, and Tupac and
Jimmy. Bring back Jimmy. Bring back Michael.
Captain Benjamin Sisko.
He's floating around up there somewhere.
I'd have a whole list. They'd be like, all right, let's get rid of this guy. So
what you guys are saying is, while I was typing feverishly in all caps in my notes, they actually explained it. I'm like, I'm not listening to you. I'm typing it.
But there was a gap there. There was enough time to transpire where you would say, how come nobody else is asking?
Because I was waiting
for their loved one back or something. Yeah. There was a moment there where you could definitely ask that question, but they explained it with the transporter signal, and they had kept it in stasis. But the thing that I thought was a little bit, I don't know, I felt some type of way. It's a very brief moment, but I felt some type of way. And this is the thing I thought. They showed a clip at the end where everybody's celebrating and drinking, and there's a Ferengi guy at the bar pouring drinks, right? And I'm like, is that a stereotype? Like, Indians owning 7-Elevens? Like, what kind of stereotypes going on? Are the Ferengi the bar guy? Is it what kind of, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a total, I'm like, hey, can Ferengi do anything else besides own a bar? Like, it kind of bothered me. Did you think that too, Mom? A little bit.
I totally thought that too. Like, wait, Ferengi always do this? Why is this? This was the flaming drinks. I remember that scene too.
Yeah, I was like, come on, man.
I totally thought that too.
They were in Starfleet already. They should be,
right.
Like they should be part of the mix. It's not like their cultures.
You know what it was? The guy's part of
Starfleet.
He's part of Starfleet, and they're like, "Welcome to Starfleet. This is great. We're very happy to have you." But I mean, those drinks aren't going to mix themselves. We need some. It's kind of like with Detmer. They're like, it needs to be a really good pie. We need somebody that's really good at mixing drinks. So
so they go down the list. They're like, hey, Bolian, you're science. A human, you're going to be at the helm. Ferengi, you know what you're doing. Go back to the bar.
Lurian, you're going to be drinking the first drink, right?
There you go.
Right. So I thought that was a little bit almost like racist in some type of way, or stereotypical, specious to some degree. So I thought that was kind of funny. But you know what? There was also the moment where Reno she had a couple of good moments in this one.
She's been great.
She's been awesome. And one of them was when she comes when she comes back to Burnham and she says, she just finished talking with Book, and Book's like, I'm going to beam you out of here and I'm going to do whatever I have to do and tell Michael, whatever it takes, right? Which meant basically kill me if you have to. And she comes back and she says to Burnham, man, that man loves you. He said, do whatever it takes, and then walked away, right? I love that moment she had. I thought it was just,
because she knew what that meant. That's what she needed to do.
Yeah.
I thought it was perfect. And then later on, she says a line that I thought was funny and it made me laugh. And she says, he said, did you hear that? The DMA is destroyed. And she said, I'm already making a cocktail.
Bobcat. Yes. A+ line.
That's the line for the next cruise. Anytime somebody says something to you, I'm already making a cocktail, Bobcat.
I know.
Waiting for everybody to be saying that to poor Anthony Rapp every time they see him, like, hey, Bobcat. He's gonna be like, oh, stop it.
Yes, that's his new name right there, Bobcat. I liked it.
All the Bobcats are very cute, so there's nothing,
It's true. Well, Culver liked it. Culver, he was like, yeah, I think that's a good nickname for you.
Rawr. He's like meow.
He liked it. He was like, I think that works.
Yeah.
Suits you.
Yeah.
So there was some really good moments. When they talked about going into warp, it would take them 10 years in warp to get back. I'm like, I hope they're not lost again in another situation. Please get back to some kind of like normalcy. I'm like, this can't become Voyager 2 and all. Like, please just go back into some kind of consistency. And they did, thankfully, return things back to normal. But I was like, oh God, are they going to be flying 10 years trying to get back to the time that they were when they started this season? Like I was,
I would kind of be fine with that. I'd be like, oh, they're lost again. Cool. Let's find new aliens. New lives, new civilizations.
My guess was they're going to find some piece off of Book's ship, because Book had that little portable spore drive. So my guess was they were going to find something off of that and have to go back. But obviously that wasn't how they did it. They did it differently. So
the wrong guess I had was at the moment you guys were talking about, which was when Book tells Reno, hey, take my comm badge and go back. It's fine. It's cool. And then there's that pause where we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I thought they were just they were going to materialize somebody, and it was going to be Tarka with a note stuffed in his shirt that says, this guy sucks. You need to do this, this, and this. And then Reno and Book were going to stick together and finish the mission. You know what I mean? Like I thought, now obviously that doesn't nearly create the emotional situation that we ended up getting later. And, you got to go emotional truth above everything else with this stuff. It's like, what's the better ride? And so obviously they ended up making the right decision there, but that's what I expected. I was like, I want to see Tarka, with his hands tied with, licorice and with a note stuffed in his shirt.
Licorice.
That'd been great.
Sticky.
You know what? I don't know, but I kept thinking this, and now I'm solidified on it. Book has the best ship in this show.
It's his Millennium Falcon.
The way it like moves and transforms its figure is super creative as a design for a ship. It makes it very elusive as well. And you would think that now that they're farther into the future, that they would have even more of a, I guess, technology, but I guess there was no lithium ion or whatever that thing that they needed for dilithium. So I guess maybe that slowed the curve of technology and ingenuity in that department. But he basically has the ship that I would blueprint and manufacture copies of that ship. That's one of the best ships there is out there, because it's not. Well, it was. And then I'm thinking, as I'm watching this, General Ndoye says, "I'm going to take out. I volunteer. I'm a pilot. I'm a combat pilot." But then I'm thinking, so all it takes to stop Book is for another ship to fly into it and T-bone it.
Ramming speed.
And I'm thinking, And the DMA, I mean the 10C, they couldn't figure out how to throw a projectile at this thing while they're destroying entire galaxies. They can't figure out how to T-bone a ship.
Their blobs are
like
too
that.
soft.
I was surprised they all survived that. I thought Ndoye was going to die there, and I thought that would have been a beautiful, fitting end. She made the sacrifice, kind of like her career and her character path is almost irredeemable. So this is the way for it to end in an honorable way. I thought for sure she was going to be dead, but they're like, oh no, we're beaming her. The other thing I thought was funny though, and maybe there are too many things that I was overanalyzing, but they go, oh, Ndoye survived. Beam her directly to sickbay. Hey, Booker survived too. Beam him to the bridge. What if he shows up? He's bleeding. He's like, what are you doing? Where's Colbert? Where's Pollard? I'm dying over here. She's like, I don't care. I want to hug you. I missed you.
It was interesting. It didn't seem like Ndoye had any consequence. I mean, Book had to go off into service, but Ndoye was still general and they're like, okay.
Yeah.
I thought Ndoye was on a suicide mission. I thought that was a suicide mission, whoever was taking that job up. So it was surprising to me that she was able to survive that impact, and be saved.
I meant even not just that she was saved, but she had no consequence after. Like when the president greeted her, it was just like, oh hey.
Right.
It wasn't like she wasn't like in shackles.
Now, there was another thing that got me thinking when we're talking about wrong guesses or wrong assumptions. And that was specifically what the 10C was, what the DMA was. What did people say? Maybe it's the Borg. Maybe it's the whatever else reference from original series. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Everybody had their guesses and they were all wrong because it did not belong to some other reference or some other alien. It was not something we've seen before. Just like in whatever it was, season 2, there was Control, and people were like, "This is going to be the Borg," and that kind of is Star Trek fans in a nutshell. Humans in a nutshell. The reason I think that we've done so well as a species is our ability to make connections and to learn patterns and to figure things out. And, Mohammed, evolution better than any of us, but I would think that that's kind of the big thing is we make connections and we learn and we adapt, right? And Star Trek fans, even more so, they're like, oh, I see something new. Let me make a connection to it. Let me see if I can, part of it is just
put it in the context of what I know.
Exactly. Part of it is that, yes, Star Trek does reference things that we know sometimes. So they kind of train us to expect the unexpected, which is great. But I think that it was satisfying for me to see that it was something new that stood on its own 2 feet. And maybe they put in these little tiny red herrings to put us off the scent where we go, hey, I've heard this thing before. Maybe it's this, maybe it's that. I really like that it was its own thing. And I really like that, Star Trek fans do have to learn that sometimes different is not always bad. And that's a good theme for people to remember that something's, there can be other good things that are not what you've already seen before. And so I was very happy about that.
I love that the writers were really willing to embrace a truly, truly alien species, like, and, not like anything we've seen ever before. And I'll say the writers' room folks they were all in. I mean, they were happy to brainstorm. The VFX people were very happy to brainstorm. They were all in. Their love of science was. It was, you could see it in every conversation. Like, oh, that's so cool. We could do that. We could animate this way. We could do this. So it was fantastic working with them. I'm really happy with the way it came out in the end. I thought they did a fantastic job with that.
Yeah. And it's a good thing that the 10C were like understanding, right? They could have been like, so? And then where do we go conversation-wise, right?
What's the hydrocarbon for shrug?
Yeah. Womp womp.
So I thought that was interesting, but also it was kind of interesting to me because when Tarina goes in and she has that moment where she's communicating with them, and she gets a nosebleed and comes down. They're like, well, what did it say? And she's like, it said they're scared. They can't stop book ship. And I'm like, yeah, they said that. Like, we know that already. We didn't need you to like almost have a near-death experience to tell us something that we did. You know, we know they're scared. We know that they don't know what to do. We don't know what to do.
Sirach, don't watch Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh,
Because there's a lot of Captain, I'm furious with you. I'm going to kill you. And then someone who shall remain nameless goes, I sense they're angry, Captain. And he's like, yes, I know, Counselor. I know. He just said it. He literally just told me he's angry. So
yeah. Okay. Note to self. And then also we finally got the Saru moment. I thought his initial pickup line was a little weak. He was like, limits dull the brightness of my day. And I was like, what is he saying? Like,
it's his first time, Sirach. Give him a break.
he needs a hitch around him or somebody cool that is like give him some pickup lines. But
book could teach him.
Yeah, it's definitely bookend for sure.
And then, but I did like the closing line that he came up with, because the beginning one was okay, but it did make her think. Obviously, it was making me think too. I was like, what the hell did he just say? But but then the closing line he had for her was, you know, when I thought we were gonna die, you know, my biggest regret was not spending more time with you. I was
like, okay,
now that's a good pickup.
That's my boy right there. He's like, all I could think about was that, boy, I wouldn't spend enough. Oh.
Yes. Oh, that I was like, that is a good line right there. You know,
melts a Vulcan's heart. Even
that's how you melt somebody's heart. That's the way to do it. So it was a good moment. We also got a little bit of Dr. Pollard in it. I mean, we had pretty much the all around. Yeah, they pretty much brought everybody back. Tilly, Dr. Pollard. We saw a lot of people in this episode.
Oh,
we did miss Reese, I think, but Bryce.
Yeah, Bryce is gone. It seems like Bryce is gone for good and has been replaced by Christopher. Speaking of people that we saw, we're almost out of time, and we almost didn't bring up what we were talking about right before we recorded, because we were talking about it earlier. But we mentioned Stacey Abrams coming in as United Earth's president. And Sirach, you thought the same thing I thought when I saw her, which was, is this the first time we've seen a political figure? You know, I don't know if I took it a step further and thought, is this the first time we've seen a political figure playing a political figure? Because Sirach, as you brought that up, and Mohammed, I believe you mentioned that King Jordan,
Crown Prince of Jordan. The current king, he was Crown Prince at the time, but he was at least Prince. Now he's the King of Jordan. He was in Voyager.
And we've had Mae Jemison, who's an astronaut, basically playing an astronaut, right? We've had Stephen Hawking playing himself. He's the only one that's actually played himself. But these other people have played something.
What about Abraham Lincoln in the original? No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding.
That's like that meme. That's like that meme that has a picture of Abraham Lincoln and it's like a quote that says, "Don't believe everything that you see on the internet." Abraham Lincoln. Anyway. But yeah, so what is the answer to that? Because I couldn't think of any.
I think the first time, right, an American politician is in a Star Trek episode. I can't think of anybody else. I don't know. Was Ronald Reagan in an episode of Next Generation?
No.
Okay.
He was already president at the time it started.
I think Bernie Sanders was in an episode of he was in Star Trek Beyond. That's what it was.
Okay.
He's the one that hit the Beastie Boys button to play the Beastie Boys. No, but I couldn't think of anything. There was the King of Jordan, or the Prince of Jordan at the time. Mae Jemison. Obviously, we know like people like Fleetwood Mac played like Mick Fleetwood played a fish alien. But this was the closest to an actual person
Iggy Pop
playing what they actually are, a politician playing a politician. Mae Jemison was the other closest, an astronaut playing basically an astronaut, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, this is the first time I saw it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. And it was a good little spin at the end. Kind of hit me by surprise because I didn't expect to see her in the episode. But I did see that I did get a chance to meet Prince of Jordan at the time.
Really?
Now, oh, wow.
What?
Yeah. I did get a chance to meet him when he was on the set.
Did he ask for your autograph? Probably. I know.
I'm gonna give you the plain picture about now King Abdullah, who he is now, but at the time he was Prince Abdullah. But he was one of the nicest people I've ever met. Super humble. He wasn't walking around wearing like royal garb and general outfit. He was wearing like jeans and a t-shirt. And when I asked, how I was supposed to address him when I met him, he was very humble and said, just, shake my hand and say hello. And I thought he was one of a real class act, and definitely somebody that I'm honored to have met.
Wow.
And that I feel like is a good stand-up gentleman.
Wow.
And
a huge Star Trek fan. Yes. Like by all accounts, it's because he was an enormous Star Trek fan and he really wanted to be there.
So I had a question. Ryan and I were talking about this before you came on the call, Sirach. So my understanding is the reason he didn't have any speaking lines was because he's not part of the Screen Actors Guild. But Stacey Abrams did have speaking lines in this episode. So I was like, oh, is that not a rule, or is it because they filmed in Canada, or what's the story there?
Oh, that's a good question.
I know I didn't have an answer. We're like, we'll wait till Sirach comes on.
Yeah, that's a very good question. I don't know why he didn't have speaking lines then. I'm sure it would have been easy. It would have been easy for him to rig himself into the Screen Actors Guild, given that he has a lot of connections and money. So I'm sure that would have been a very easy thing for him to do. He threw kind of a big deal. He threw a party for us, not for us, but I guess for for Star Trek people at the Planet Hollywood back in the days when he was on the show. And that was at the Planet Hollywood in Beverly Hills. And he basically, out of his pocket, threw this huge event to celebrate Star Trek and his appearance on this show. And he gave me his business card, which I still have to this day. It's one of the things I cherish. He says, if you're ever in Jordan, call me. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'll keep that. One of these days I might need you. I don't know. We'll see.
We passing through?
I just like that Sirach goes out of his own pocket. Well, I mean, yeah.
It was, he was a fantastic guy, very humble, very nice. And we took pictures that day, and I wish I could find those pictures because somebody has those pictures, and I'm sure it's in his possession, but I would love to see him and kind of hold him on to my own. But yeah, he's a big fan of the show, big fan of Star Trek. And like I said, he was a gentleman and actually offered to help me out when my grandmother was kind of going through issues with glaucoma and other things. Oh. He mentioned that he had some very good doctors in Jordan, and he was like, well, I'll fly you out I'll fly you out to Jordan, fly your grandmother out, and she can get her surgery there. So he was that nice to even extend that kind of thing, regardless of whether I took him up on it. The fact that he made that kind of offer, and I think shows the kind of person he is, as far as generosity and caring. So, yeah, it's little information about King Abdullah bin Al Hussein.
Good memory,
if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, shout out to him.
Yeah, gentleman, that's awesome. Scholar. I love that story. That's really cool.
That is a great story. Cool.
See
if he wants to come on our show next week.
Or come to Star Trek Las Vegas.
Hit him up.
It was funny because on his business card it didn't say Prince. It said Commander of the Royal Jordanian Air Force. That's what it actually said. So he's a pilot. He flies planes, and he is the head of the Jordanian Air Force as well. So at least at that time, that was one of his titles. So I thought it was pretty cool that he's into Star Trek. And at one point I read an article that he was going to open a theme park.
Yeah.
A Star Trek theme park. Yeah. So he's a big fan. And But yeah, Stacey Abrams is in this, and I thought that was an interesting little extra added touch. This episode ran a little bit long, and I wondered why. Is that because it's just the finale of the season that they stretched it an extra 5 or 6 minutes?
That was my assumption because I noticed it was an hour too, which is usually it's been more like 50 minutes. So yeah, that was my guess too. Yeah. So does this mean? So does this mean Stacey Abrams might be at like 56-year mission in Vegas or something now?
Hang on. I just want to let me see. Sorry, I just want to make sure we got the right guy here real quick. Okay, so King Abdullah here. Okay.
Yeah.
Want to come on out show next week? I'm gonna spell week incorrectly. I leave it like that. I'll be like, who are these weirdos?
He's gonna be like, yeah. No, anyway, that is him. Yes, and he actually might come on the show. He's like I said, he's a big fan of the show, of all Star Trek, and he has a lot to say, and obviously he has a lot to do. But yeah, he's a big fan, and he's like I said, it was really a pleasure to meet him and just have that opportunity.
That's awesome. I love it.
It's the ending.
No.
Well, we're just about out of time. Before we go, any final thoughts?
Loved it.
Yeah, I loved it. How long before the next season 5 comes along? What is the estimation for that?
They've just started the writers' room for it. I haven't been invited yet, or I'm saying yet as though I might be. I don't know if I will be or not. So I don't really know. Okay. But it's not going to be anytime soon.
How nice is it though that the good people at Star Trek and Discovery can take a break and relax and know, hey, there's a lot of other Star Trek coming up. There's no gigantic rush to hurry up and put something new out on Paramount Plus because Paramount Plus has other shows. So they can take their time. I'm just assuming that they may have been like rushed in the past because that show a couple years ago was basically carrying this entire streaming service. And now they can take a week off. They can take a break. They can take an extra couple weeks if they need to really iron things out. Like, I feel like there's a little bit of pressure taken off their shoulders, and people like you, Mohammed, could be like, who knows? They're starting it up again. They could, there's like less pressure. They can just be like, okay, you guys got this for a few months, right? You're going to be okay. Right?
So they've already filmed season 3 of Picard. So, and season 2 is just starting now. So presumably season 3 will come out long before Discovery comes back.
Right. And we're going to get Lower Decks season 3. We're going to get Prodigy the second half of season 2. We're going to get Strange New Worlds, which I'm super excited about.
Yeah, one of the things that they really had a challenge to overcome was the whole COVID shutdown situation in the business and them trying to overcome that. So that definitely put a wrench in their scheduling and their timing. So kudos to them for overcoming that and still being able to put out a quality product that people enjoy.
Yeah, agreed. 100% agreed.
Good point. That pressure is doubled when they're saying, you guys need to hurry up and shoot a show. And they're like, but there's a pandemic. They're like, well, you got to hurry up. You got to write it on Zoom. Yeah. You got to try to come up with more walk-in talks with just 2 people. You got, that was no small feat what they accomplished. Yeah. Wow. That's a good point. Good point. Yeah. All right.
And on that note, I say, Kokone Akwan.
Oh, you wrote it down. It's Kokone Akwan.
He said it right.
I said it right.
I love it. That was my favorite part, actually. I'm glad you mentioned that. When
I laughed out loud at that.
He said it, whatever. And she's like, I said it right.
Yeah. Okay. We've all had that experience when you pronounce something and somebody corrects you. Mm-hmm. So, yes, I thought that was funny.
Mm-hmm. Great stuff.
Thanks for having me on to talk about it. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you.
My pleasure.
We do also want to say a very special thanks to our friends, Carmen, a.k.a. Skillet, TJ Jackson Bay out in Missouri, Bill Victor Arukin.
Arukin.
For a second, I half thought that Mohammed might join in on that.
I debated.
I knew you were thinking about it. We also have Yvette Blackman, Tom. We have Homer Freezy out somewhere in New Yeezy. We've got Eve England out in Wales. Dr. Anne-Marie Seagull, who knows pretty much everything. We have Grandpa One, a.k.a. Tim Baum. We have Titus Moeller. Darlena Marie, our good friend, Mr. John Mann. We have, what do you know, Dr. Mohamed Noor, Tierney C. Diekman, Joe Balsarati, Ryan Cool Name Galloway, Christopher Collins, Erica Strom, Amy Renee Haynes, and of course, Dr. Susan V. Gruner, who listened intently when we mentioned ants earlier. And you know she did. Entomologist. Anyway, yeah. Mohamed, this was awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We've been waiting a freaking year to finally get you on the show. You're like, you got to be patient. Wait. But it's been well worth the wait. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Honored.
And everybody at home, we'll see you next time. And until then, always remember the 7th rule.